You're watching News Central now on News Central TV. I'm Adebola Adedwa. The top stories at this hour. INEC decries high cost of by-elections, proposes 126 billion naira for 2025. Appeal Court orders fresh hearing in Kano Emirate dispute, overturns earlier ruling on Emir Sanusi Lamido and Ado Bayero. Angola President João Lorenzo pardons activists detained for criticizing his government. And details shortly. We begin the news of this hour with the Independent National Electoral Commission proposing a budget of 126 billion naira for its 2025 operations, citing the rising costs of conducting elections in Nigeria. Now, INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu expressed concern that the approved 40 billion naira for 2024 would be inadequate to cover the Commission's activities for the upcoming year. Yakubu underscored the financial burden of organizing 21 by-elections nationwide, with 11 still pending. He stressed that the Commission's activities are highly capital-intensive, necessitating substantial funding to ensure efficient and timely execution of election. He proposed the election funding be sourced directly from the Federation accounts. Meanwhile, the Senate and House of Representatives Committee on Electoral Matters commended INEC for its effective management of the 2024 elections despite limited resources. The committee also emphasized the importance of increased funding for 2025 to enhance the Commission's operations.
Honorable Bob, you touched on a very, very important issue. We need a big, major conversation in this country. Nigeria has no election season any longer. I said earlier that in Ghana, they conducted only 3 by-elections between one general election and another. In our own case, even before the midterm, vacancies have now occurred in 21 constituencies. But not only that, we also have 8 governorship elections conducted off-cycle. So the Commission is conducting elections virtually all year round. We have little time to recover our senses and begin to plan for the next election. For instance, in the election year 2023, we conducted 3 off-cycle governorship elections. The registered voters in some of the states is actually bigger than some of the countries in our sub-region. In Edo State, for instance, with 2.5 million registered voters, they have more voters than the Republic of Liberia. So a governorship election in Ondo is like Edo is like a governorship election in Liberia. The state with the smallest number of registered voters in Nigeria is Ekiti. Ekiti has more registered voters than the Republic of Gambia, and it has more registered voters than Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verde put together. So conducting election in Nigeria is huge. Then we come to the issue of cost of conducting elections. I'm going to say 2 things briefly, because I will speak to this in greater detail when I present our proposals for 2025 on the conduct of elections. But I think the second thing to say is that these are fresh elections, the by-elections, the off-cycle governorship elections, involving the whole gamut of the processes, including conduct of party.
Let's also tell you that the National Assembly's Joint Committee on Solid Minerals has rejected the Ministry of Solid Minerals 2025 budget proposal, describing it as grossly inadequate. The committee chairman, Senator Ekong Samson, voiced his appointment after the budget was presented by the Minister of Solid Minerals, Dele Alake. Now, the ministry proposed 539.7 billion naira for capital expenditure and 2 billion naira for overhead costs, but was allocated only 9 billion naira. Senator D.K. Plank moved the motion to reject the budget, which was seconded by Senator Natasha Kpoti-Duanghang. The committee stressed the strategic importance of the solid minerals sector in driving Nigeria's economic diversification. Alake disclosed that the ministry's 2024 budget implementation was hindered by poor fund releases, resulting in 18% performance on capital expenditure. Despite this, the ministry generated 37.8 billion naira in revenue, significantly exceeding its 11 billion naira projection. The committee's decision to reject the budget underscores concerns about the ministry's funding and potential consequences for Nigeria's economic diversification agenda. The National Assembly, through its Joint Committee on Industry, Trade and Investment, has criticized Nigeria's border closure policy, describing it as ineffective in addressing cross-border crimes such as banditry and smuggling. And during the 2025 budget defense session with the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investments, lawmakers expressed frustration over persistent security and economic challenges stemming from the porous nature of Nigeria's border with Niger and Chad. They warned that the nation might be deceiving itself with the current approach. Chairman, Senate Committee on Industry, Francis Fadaunsi, argued that the border closure policy is counterproductive. He suggested that officially opening the borders could prove more beneficial than maintaining the illusion of a closure that fails to curb smuggling and insecurity effectively. And for context, we're joined by public affairs analyst, and that's Jide Ojo. Good afternoon. Glad to have you join me on the news.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure. Happy weekend.
All right, thank you. Let me kick off by asking you if there's been so far a detailed post-implementation review of the border closure policy success in curbing what we know as illegal activities like smuggling and trafficking. And if so, what has been the outcome so far?
My dear sister, let's not live under any illusion. Every form of boundaries are artificial. There's no country in the world that has successfully closed its borders securely. And you could see what's going on in US, between US and Canada, between US and Mexico. This US is one of the most technologically advanced countries, but here you see a lot of illegal migrants moving into US. Likewise, UK. You see Nigerians who are going through the waterways, through Atlantic Ocean, Sahara Desert, Atlantic Oceans into Spain and Europe. So it's an existential problem. That's what I'm trying to drive at. It's an existential problem, and Nigeria does not even have the wherewithal to procure technological innovations to effectively survey our borders. Let me shock you. Over 10 years ago, David Paradag, when he was the Controller General of Nigeria Immigration Service, did say that the NIS, that's the Immigration Service, discovered 1,400 illegal entry routes into Nigeria. 1,400. Meanwhile, we have about 86 manned borders throughout Nigeria. So just do the math. You have over 1,400. As of that time, maybe there are more now. You have 1,400 illegal entry routes, and you only have 86 officially manned border posts. That's why, issue of smuggling of Nigeria's petroleum products and importing through smuggling food items can never stop. Not even with the best effort of Nigerian Customs Service or Nigerian Immigration Service. Because Nigeria is a huge country with thousands of square kilometers. You cannot build a perimeter fence across a country this huge. So the best that could be done is to manage it in a creative way. And I must say that the federal government last year did inaugurate a command and control center where they said they are going to be using technology to survey the different border posts in Nigeria. That was towards the end of last year. We just hope that surveillance will yield positive results. To effectively man any country's border is like living in a fool's paradise.
Just to come in there, Mr. Ojo. Yeah, if I may, just to chip in there, talking about, you mentioned creative ways need be, carried out or thought through in ensuring, we tighten our border porosity. But then what ways are these ways when it comes to ensuring security of our border to enhance or prevent criminals, to prevent them from finding their ways, into Nigeria?
Now, I've mentioned one, that's technological innovations, drones, satellite dishes that could help you to monitor inflow and outflow of people, and then you can then profile them, see whether they are behaving in a suspicious manner, then you can flag them down, and that's Nigeria Immigration Service can flag them down. But more importantly, you need the buy-in of the border communities. Former Minister of Information did say that there was a time he visited one border community in Ogun State. The front of the Oba's Palace belongs to Nigeria. The backyard is Benin Republic. So how do you, I mean, it's just one building, the frontage is Nigeria, the backyard is Benin Republic. So you need the buy-in of the border communities to give you intelligence as to what is going on, whether there are smuggling activities, what are the illegal entry routes, and then how do you profile people that you see around. So you need intelligence gathering. And effective intelligence gathering will not happen if the border communities are continually neglected. Many of these border communities do not have social amenities of any sort. They don't have good roads, they don't have electricity, they don't have water, they don't, in fact, if you visit any of the border community, you will find out that they have nothing at stake in Nigeria. The telecommunication that they are using belongs to another country. The road network was possibly built by the other country. And we have a National Boundary Commission. That Boundary Commission needs to be strengthened, and the various ministry, departments, and agencies need to do something to appease the border communities, to get them to supply intelligence to Nigeria Immigration Service officials, because they know who are the smugglers amongst them. They know the criminal elements amongst them. They know those who are engaging in human trafficking amongst them. They know those who are doing any act of illegality. But they will not volunteer information. They will not act as whistleblower in as much as they do not have anything to show for their belonging to Nigeria. So you need to provide them social amenities like schools, hospitals, good roads, electricity, pipe-borne water. Then they will know that their allegiance is to this country, Nigeria. But the story over the decades have really, really been very appalling. You can fact check what I have just told you, my dear sister.
All right, Mr. Ojo, let's talk about the economic consequences now, both in the positive and negative light. Do you think the National Assembly attributes to the border closure policy in terms of local businesses, trade volumes, and also supply chain disruptions?
Of course, we are losing a lot in terms of economy. Take, for instance, the issue of when we closed our border with Niger. Most of the imports that we legally have from Niger Republic, we could not have it for over 1 year. What are these items? Food items like grains, beans, rice, millet, cattle, sheep, ram, goat. These are products that are supplied cheaply from Benin. Anytime there is a Ramadan and Eid Fitri, you see merchants who will go to neighboring countries like Chad, Benin Republic, and Niger. They will go and buy Ngo and come and sell in Nigeria because it's cheaper over there. And if you don't close this border post, you will be able to tax them or make them to pay the appropriate custom duty. But when you say the border is closed, these people will find their route through the 1,400 illegal entry routes I mentioned earlier. Also, take the issue of why Nigeria have to jack up the price of these petroleum products. According to President Bola Tinubu, he could not be playing Father Christmas to these neighboring countries, far up to Central African Republic, where Nigeria's petroleum products are smuggled to. Because our own petroleum products in Nigeria are among the cheapest in Africa, even with the removal of subsidy. Those who know what's happening will tell you in Cameroon, in Ghana, in Benin Republic, the price of PMS is as high as 1,005, 1,007. So even with the removal of subsidy, Nigeria's PMS, Nigerian diesel and all of that still is cheap and are still being trafficked. But what we are saying is that if government did not close down this border, anyone that wants to move these products across the border will have to pay the appropriate custom duty over there. And that will yield revenue for the federal government. And so we are losing a lot when we pretend that, oh, we have closed the border, so zero income is expected from those closed borders. Meanwhile, the smugglers are having a field day, taking these products either in or outside through the illegal entry position. But let me also quickly say, the most worrisome for me are the smuggling of small arms and light weapons, because we have not been able to effectively man these porous borders. It's very easy to traffic into Nigeria small arms and light weapons from across the African continent. And that is what has exacerbated our insecurity. Because it's very easy to bring in AK-47 pistols and all of that. In fact, it has been said that some of the headers that come from Mali, Futajalom, Burkina Faso, Niger and all of that, that even when they are rearing their cattle, in some of the sacks that you think that they have only food for the cattle, they may actually have been using those cattle as a means of transporting these small arms and light weapons. Likewise, the human trafficking angle. So in terms of insecurity, it has worsened our insecurity. In terms of economy, we have lost and we are still losing huge revenue sources. And let's not even focus too much on the land borders. Do you know that worse things are happening through the waterways? Look at the Atlantic Ocean that, from Port Harcourt through Oro, from all the Niger Delta states down to Lagos. Who is policing those international waterways, where it is so easy for people to smuggle in all these light weapons and small arms that militants in Niger Delta are using?
And that's a fine place to wrap up. We're pressed for time. Thank you so much for your time on the news. Jide Ojo, a public affairs analyst, many thanks indeed for your insight.
You have a joyful weekend. Keep safe.
We'll take a break now. When we return, EFCC arrests 4 Chinese nationals. Details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. In the meantime, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, has arrested 4 Chinese nationals and 101 others in connection with an alleged hotel review job scam. And speaking during a press briefing in Abuja, operatives of the commission say the suspects, comprising 67 males and 37 females, were apprehended at a business apartment in the Gudu area of the Federal Capital Territory, FCT.
Are heading this syndicate. They go around putting up placed adverts for jobs, luring innocent Nigerians to come under their employment, after which they now go ahead to give them instructions on how to initiate contact with victims around the world.
Under the Advanced Fee Fraud Act, if you own a premises or a property and allows it to be used for criminality, you can be charged under the law. But it's for the investigation to establish whether the owner of that property is an accomplice to this crime, or is aware that the property is being used for crime and encourage that activity to go on. That is something that the investigation should establish.
The wife of the Jigawa State Governor has called for more efforts to end cases of gender-based violence in Nigeria's northern region. And this was as she paid visits to a 9-year-old victim who was raped and almost left for dead at the Kano Teaching Hospital in Kano State. Our correspondent, Gudu, tells us more.
This is the emergency ward of the Kano Teaching Hospital in Kano. A 9-year-old rape victim from Jigawa State, whose name will not be mentioned, is being treated at this facility as she was brought in a coma. The case, which went viral on social media, has attracted the attention of the Emir of Kano and the wife of the Jigawa State Governor, who visited the victim at the hospital.
Nigerian Governors' Wives Forum has emerged in order for us to provide a counter-attack on sexual and gender-based violence, especially during the increase in COVID-19 pandemic. So when I heard the story of Khadija, I have to come here myself. It was my responsibility to give her financial support, and apart from that, to give her a sense of belonging. For me to come here personally to see her, and Alhamdulillah, she is responding to treatment, and the Jigawa State government is taking all the financial support, everything on her medical bill. We are going to pay for it.
The chief medical director of the hospital, while confirming the case, says that the hospital is doing all it can to give the victim proper medical care.
This is something that usually takes many years, okay, to treat, okay, because not just the physical injury, there are other forms of injuries also that she will suffer. You know, emotional trauma is there, which will be quite serious. But in particular, she's admitted here in the emergency because of surgical problems she developed, okay, during that incident, and we hope she's going to be operated for it, and subsequently she'll come back for other operation also, because it involves different parts, you know, of her private part, okay, which will need to be treated by various specialists, okay, and at various times.
While many are calling for justice for the victim, the wife of the Jigawa State Governor says efforts should be put in place to end the cases of gender-based violence bedeviling Nigeria's northern region. In Kano, for News Central, I am Emmanuel Bagudu.
The Court of Appeal in Abuja set aside the Federal High Court's judgment nullifying the Kano State government's last year's steps and actions based on the Kano State Emirate Council Repeal Law for 2024, including the reinstatement of Sanusi Lamido Sanusi as the 16th Emir of Kano State. Meanwhile, supporters of the deposed Emir of Kano, Ado Bayero, say the appeal court judgment declaring that the Federal High Court in Abuja has no jurisdiction to entertain matters relating to the Kano Emirate tussle will be appealed. Amadine Uyi tells us more.
The case had split the Kano Emirates into two different factions among supposedly members of the same royal family. While one faction supported the deposed Emir, Ado Bayero, the other faction stood firmly behind the reinstated Emir, Mohammed Sanusi II. With the Federal High Court and the Kano State High Court delivering differing judgments on the matter, the case was then taken to the Court of Appeal in Abuja and judgment duly passed.
Two judgments in this case. The first one made by the Federal High Court in Kano, which they are of the view that the Federal High Court does not have the jurisdiction to entertain that case. The judge in his ruling said they should revert to the State High Court for retrial, and the other two judges disagree with him. That is the case for the Federal High Court. As the case for the State High Court, all what the State High Court has done, they have nullified all the decisions of that court and asked for a retrial of the case.
The judgment by the three-member panel of justices, led by Mohammed Mustafa, was unanimous, But one of the supporters of the deposed Emir Bayero told newsmen that the judgment will be appealed to the nation's apex court.
On the issue of the Federal High Court, we'll go to the Supreme Court. That is definitely.
The court has called for fresh hearing under a different justice of the state high court to ensure that the matter is duly resolved in the eyes of the law. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, has reaffirmed the UN's commitment to supporting Nigeria to address its myriad of humanitarian challenges. Mohammed made this known during a visit to the nation's Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation in Abuja. News Central's Idong Joseph has more on the story.
This marks the first meeting of the year between the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, and Nigeria's Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. The visit also serves as an opportunity to know the ministry priority for the year and discuss the UN's continued partnership in tackling humanitarian challenges.
Coming into the country to meet with our country team, one of the closest partners that we have has always been within our humanitarian family, and therefore coming to pay a courtesy call on you at the beginning of the year to really hear what some of your priorities will be for the year. We deeply appreciate the relationship that we've had over the past year.
Mohammed expressed concerns about the impact of climate change affecting vulnerable groups, highlighting the need for increased funding.
Nigeria has many challenges when it comes to humanitarian crisis. Climate is new to the challenges that we face. It needs huge investments in the country so that we can have those transitions that will make us more resilient. They will look at adaptation.
The minister expressed confidence that continued collaboration with the UN will help address the nation's current humanitarian challenges.
From the discussion we had with Her Excellency this morning, we have opportunity to partner together to ensure that the people on the move, especially people affected due to insurgency and climate change and other conflicts across the country, and even the impact of the economic changes that we're making, the reforms that we're making in the government, we give human face to everybody across the country.
The Deputy Secretary General also outlined several areas where the United Nations intends to support Nigeria.
There has been some work together with the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs on what we call durable solutions, and it is that work and the technical assistance in getting ownership and capacity building in the ministry. So through what we have cooperation framework for many sectors, we bring that expertise from the different agencies. So
she pledged to strengthen the UN's partnership with Nigeria, which is crucial to addressing the nation's humanitarian needs. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
In a bid to mitigate the impact of recent flooding, the Gombe state government has launched an intervention program of the federal government's flood intervention to support small and medium-scale businesses owners across the state. This initiative seeks to revitalize businesses that were severely impacted by natural disaster. Our correspondent Umaru Kirawa throws more light.
A day to smile for these businessmen and women after the flood that devastated their means of survival. Gombe State Governor, while addressing stakeholders at the launch of the flood intervention, said that it is part of deliberate efforts to boost economic recovery.
We need to be our brothers' keepers. And what we did to Borno and Yobe is exactly what NEDC did to us now. And NEDC is doing that because it has been given direction by no other person than the President and Commander-in-Chief, President Bola Tinubu, who has been handling this country despite the tough situation that he found himself.
Stakeholders call for collective effort to proactively tackle flood indicators and hasten recovery process in the northeast Nigeria.
Today's flag-off ceremony signifies our commitment to ensuring that the 1.5 billion support reaches those in need, facilitating the rebuilding of homes, restoration of businesses, and rehabilitation of our local economy.
Just in December, if I can recall vividly, we are giving our local governments people more than 5 interventions from the government. I want to urge all the beneficiaries, sir, that please, we should be ambassadors of advocating for good governance. Whether you like it, or whether we like it or not, we have to say the truth the way it is.
We have more than 3,000 skills in our associations. So we make sure that this support will support our people, our community and society, and our state in general.
The government called on the beneficiaries of the scheme to utilize the funds judiciously to revitalize their businesses.
With the dams that we have, and if we are able to create more dams so that the water, excess water will now end in the dams, we can utilize the water in irrigating farms, and we'll have more food, and we'll have guarantee and food security. That is what leadership should provide all that, and we are ready for that. So please bear with us.
The disbursement of the 1.5 billion naira has since commenced with the presentation of checks to selected individuals among the 10,000 beneficiaries. In Gombe for News Central, Umoru Kirawa.
Coming up, Angola President João Lourenço pardons activists detained for criticizing his government. Details shortly. Join us again. Thank you for staying with us. Let's now take you to Southern Africa, where 5 critics of Angola's president, João Lourenço, have been freed after more than a year in detention, including prominent TikToker Ana da Silva Miguel. Now Miguel, who was also known as Neth Nahara, was known for using TikTok to share advice on living healthy with HIV, making her one of the few Angolans to speak publicly about the issue. However, she was arrested on 13th August 2023 after criticizing Lourenço in a live video. Activists Adolfo Campos, Hermenegildo Victor Jose, Gilson Moreira, and Abrao Pedro Santos were arrested on 16th September 2023 before a planned protest.
Para melhor leitura da razão do déficit de credibilidade do sistema judicial angolano, basta verificar que desde a injusta detenção dos ativistas, os seus mandatários legais realizaram e cumpriram escrupulosamente com tudo quanto rege nos procedimentos judiciais, mas, lamentavelmente, a interferência política e parcialidade dos magistrados envolvidos.
Estamos aqui, estamos em liberdade. A nossa liberdade não foi por causa do indulto. O indulto é simplesmente um charme político. Mais uma vez foi um charme político por parte do Presidente da República, João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, porque nós já estaremos em liberdade há muito tempo, porque não deveriam lá estar onde a gente esteve.
Primeiro, em poucas palavras, diria que não tivemos um processo digno do seu nome ou justo. Foi tudo uma montagem política para restringir o espaço cívico.
In Stilfontein, South Africa, thousands of illegal miners have been trapped in a tunnel for 4 months without food or water. On Friday, reports of a letter allegedly written by one of the victims described the harrowing conditions where many of them are holed up under the ground. The miners claim that there are over 100 dead bodies who succumbed to starvation and dehydration. News Central's Bongani Sisiba reports from Johannesburg, South Africa.
In the depth of Stilfontein mine shaft 10, 2 kilometers beneath the surface, a grim of reality persists. Over 4 months have passed since a group of miners became trapped underground, and their cries for help echo every day through the darkness.
When you speak here, please be on facts and not ignore facts that the majority of the people who are coming out, even though there are South Africans, because I don't want to lie, South Africans are involved, but the majority, overwhelming majority, are people from outside.
This statement by the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu, ignited heated debate among these community members who were quick to challenge the government's position that suggested that the government's assistance was not a priority because those trapped are foreigners.
All that you have emphasized again and again and again, they are Zimbabweans, they are Mozambicans. And I may very well ask, what conclusion do you draw from that? Do you draw a conclusion from that that they are less human? They are less deserving of life? What conclusion do you draw from that?
This heartbreaking letter is just one of many that have surfaced, revealing their desperate plight and fears of uncertain fate. For these families, they despair every day. They come here for news of their loved ones. The grief is palpable. Early this January, allegations surfaced that police had obstructed aid efforts, refusing water and equipment to be sent down to trapped miners. There are also reports that the very equipment intended for rescue by the volunteers was confiscated. The community was left questioning, how does help come to those trapped in such dire circumstances? These community members have also voiced their frustrations about the disparities in response times, citing a recent successful operation in Mpumalanga as a glaring contrast to the situation here.
The situation that is happening in Mpumalanga, because we saw that in Sabi, they are taking them a bit fast and the police are hands-on. But here we are not saying that. We are not saying that, and we are getting more dead bodies every day.
News Central recently caught up with miners who survived the ordeal underground. Their harrowing tales reveals not only the physical dangers, but also the psychological toll of isolation and fear.
I also think that we will need a counseling. It's too bad, like when you hold someone who is dead, it's not easy. Yeah, we can see underground there. It's too difficult, my sister.
As the community rallies for action, the search for answers continues. The urgency has never been greater, and the people of Stilfontein are determined not to let their voices be silenced. They cry out not just for their loved ones' rescue, but for recognition of their humanity and responsibility of the government. They demand not just answers, but action. For News Central, I am Bongani Sisiba.
U.S. President Joe Biden says his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin is under significant pressure following sweeping sanctions imposed on Moscow's energy sector by Washington and London. Now, these measures targeting Russia's oil and liquefied natural gas industries are expected to cost the Russian economy billions of dollars each month. Biden stressed the need to deny Putin any breathing room to persist with these aggressive actions. He also expressed optimism about Ukraine's prospect of success, provided it continues to receive robust support from Western nations.
Putin's in tough shape right now. And I think it's really important that he not have any breathing room to continue to do the god-awful things he's continuing to do. Well, I had a long talk with Zelensky today. And I think that as long as we continue to keep Western Europe united as it relates to Ukraine, that there is a real chance that the Ukrainians can prevail, because the cost to Russia is incredibly high. The sanctions are imposed today because they will have profound effect on the growth of the Russian economy and make it more difficult for Putin to conduct his wars. It is probable that gas prices could increase as much as 3-4 cents a gallon, but it's going to have a more profound impact on Russia's ability to continue to act in the way it's acting in the conduct of war.
In business, Nigeria's 2025 proposed national budget has drawn criticism from omitting key allocations, including funding for the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Road and detailed budgets for several NDAs, commissions and councils such as the National Judicial Council and TECT Fund. And this was contained in a statement released by Budget on its X platform on Friday. The civil society organization also said budgets of over 60 government-owned enterprises, including the Nigeria Port Authority, Nigeria Customs Service, and NEMASA, are missing. It also pointed out that President Tinubu's announcements, retirements, benefits for military generals, bulletproof SUVs, or foreign medical trips, and hefty Esther codes contradict his earlier promises to cut governance costs, risking inflating the fiscal deficit and may demoralize lower-ranking military personnel who face inadequate retirement benefits and health insurance. The Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has introduced 2 new accounts for Nigerians living abroad: the non-resident Nigerian Ordinary Accounts, NRNOA, and the non-resident Nigerian Investment Accounts, NRNIA, for Nigerians in diaspora. The NRNOA facilitates remittances and fund management in foreign and local currencies, while the NRNIA allows investments in Nigerian assets, including diaspora bonds and other debt instruments, aimed at improving diasporans' access to economic opportunities in the country. The account will also simplify fund management and reduce reliance on third parties for local transactions. Eligible Nigerians in diaspora can open these accounts starting 1st January 2025, subject to KYC requirements. The CBN had previously announced plans to launch a non-resident bank verification number, NRBVN, in December 2024 to streamline KYC processes for diaspora banking. Ethiopia inaugurated the Ethiopian Securities Exchange ESX on Friday, marking a pivotal step in Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's economic liberation agenda. Now, the exchange, launched with the Wagagen Bank, was its sole listing, but aims to host 90 companies within a decade. State-owned Ethio Telecom, preparing for an IPO, is expected to join. This development restores the Securities Exchange abolished in 1974 under a socialist regime. Ethiopia, Africa's second most populous nation, has experienced rapid growth but faced challenges from internal conflict and skepticism about the liberalization commitment. While foreign interest remains tepid, local investors view the ESX as a breakthrough, offering stakeholders equity in Ethiopia's leading firms. In the world of sports, ahead of the national finals of the Nigerian School Sports Flag Football League, the Akwa Ibom State government is hoping the state representatives can retain their title. Now, the Akwa Ibom defeated Team Abuja in the boys' final of the second edition held in Ondo State last year. 10 states, including Lagos, Ogun, Ondo, Akwa Ibom, the FCT, Oyo, Kwara, Rivers, Benue, and the host Cross River, will compete at this year's event, which will take place at the UJ Uswene Stadium in Calabar from 14th to 16th of January. Akwa Ibom State is being represented by students of Community Commercial Secondary Schools, ITAM. Ahead of the departure for Calabar, the team was hosted by the chairman of the Akwa Ibom State Secondary Education Board, retired Honorable Ekaite Ubong, who charged them to defend the state's honor.
I'm excited because Akwa Ibom is going to showcase our talent again in the American Flag Football League, and it is my prayer that they will come back successful and they will bring back the golden trophy to this state. Our governor will be very excited. He is a sport-loving governor, and I know that the prayer of a father, Pastor Omwabaseno, will go along with them, and the children will come back triumphant, successful in the competition.
The highly anticipated Nigeria Premier Football League Matchday 16 clash between Kwara United and Enyimba has been postponed once more. In a statement issued by the NPFL Chief Operating Officer, Davidson Owumi, the game, which was previously rescheduled for 15th January 2025, will now take place on Wednesday, 5th February 2025 at the Kwara State Stadium Complex in Ilorin. Kickoff is set for 4 p.m. The game was postponed due to Enyimba's participation in the CAF Confederations Cup, where as they are expected to travel to Egypt to face the Malek on Sunday, the 19th of January. Aruna Kore's quest for a 2025 WTT Doha contender title came to a halt in the semi-finals as the Nigerian table tennis star was defeated in straight set by Japan's Tamokazu Harimoto. Quadri, who had made an impressive run to the last four, secured a hard-fought victory over Britain's Liam Pritchard in the quarterfinals. However, in the semi-finals, he was outclassed by the world-class Japanese player who dominated the encounter. The match, which ended 3-0 in Harimoto's favor, saw Quadri struggle to gain momentum against his younger opponent, whose skill and speed proved too much to handle. Despite an encouraging start to the tournament, Quadri's dreams of lifting the trophy were dashed by Harimoto's exceptional performance, denying him a spot in the final. And that's all on the news. Let's take a look again at some of the major stories. INEC has decried high cost of by-elections and proposed 126 billion naira for 2025. Appeal Court has ordered fresh hearing in Kano Emirate dispute over and overturned earlier ruling on Emir Sanusi Lamido and Ado Bayero. And finally, we told you that Angolan President João Lourenço has pardoned activists detained for criticizing his government. You can watch News Central live on DSTV, channel 422, Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adibola Adiduba.